Daytrotter is a recording series that happens in the Quad Cities that you don't know anything about. Michaels and I didn't know anything about it until just a couple weeks ago, really. And the bands that are doing it are coming through the Quad Cities.
Sean Moeller, whose name you might recognize, was a sports reporter for the Quad City Times for several years, had this idea and quietly has built it up into a destination for artists either established or up and coming. And Sean is in the studio with us. Before we go any further and let him talk a little bit, is it fair to say that most people never knew this was going on, and that's part of the appeal for some of these artists that sneak into the Quad Cities?
I think it is. It's kind of been wild to me that people don't know what's going on just yet. What's funny is we're right across the street from the U.S. Bank building, and when I go in there to do my banking, the tellers are always like, we always see the buses, we always see the vans, and we just love watching the people go into the building.
But they don't know what's going on.
They don't know what's going on.
That guy's got to be dealing drugs over there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's strange.
But the list is so impressive, and these bands, these artists have all been in the Quad Cities without any fanfare. Correct me if I'm wrong. Counting Crows.
Correct.
Bush.
Correct.
Carly Simon.
Correct.
Chris Christopherson. Amy
Correct.
Mann. Tori Amos. Charlie Pride.
You're going
Colin
too fast.
Hay.
He can't keep
Toad the
saying
Wet
correct.
Sprocket.
These are all correct.
No concerts. They just came to your recording studio, stopped in, and slipped out unnoticed.
Yep. Usually are 2 hours and then gone.
And why? Why? Not nothing against you, but why come to this kind of out of the way destination?
Well, I mean, it's a buildup of sorts, right? Because we've been doing it. We'll turn 10 next February.
10 years.
10 years, and when we started, it's not like we were getting those people right away, but pretty quickly we were. It was a little odd that we were getting people that had a name,
and they're contacting
us. I mean, I reached out to most people. I mean, look, I reached out to Charlie Pride. It's not like he called us up and said, "Hey, we want to come in." But it's just building. We built a brand. We built something that people respected, and it's a weird thing.
It's an analog studio, and then you convert everything to digital for the main mix.
Right.
But is that an appeal? Because you guys are, specialty
we
type
record
stuff?
A lot of people that had never recorded to tape before. I mean, there's a lot of people that take pictures of the tape machine as it's rolling because they're freaked out.
Can I touch it? Can I look at it? Really?
Yeah,
well,
totally.
Remember when we had Tracy Guns in here from LA Guns? He came in and he was sitting in the seat you're sitting in right now, and he looked into that studio. There's an empty rack there in Goose's studio now, but before that, it had a reel-to-reel multi-track machine.
A Tascam something or other, and he knew all about it.
He went gaga. Then after we had him on, he went into the basement here, and he's like freaking out over all these analog boards and all this. So is there like is it like a hip factor?
I should go look at that stuff.
He took most of
all the good stuff.
But you're welcome if you're funny enough. You're welcome to go down afterwards.
So what is your? Let's go back to your Charlie Pride example. He's a legend in country music.
Right.
What's your pitch to him? You said you reached out to him. What did you say?
I mean, look, he's just you reach out to a manager at that point,
right?
I mean, there's plenty of people, I guess, my age, right? That all I do when I go to Ragged Records is buy old country music. I buy old country records, and that's it. But there's plenty of people. I mean, even if you took a Willie Nelson, right? I mean, there's a certain point where there's a generation of kids that aren't. You become less and less familiar with kind of. Even with music at your fingertips right now, with everything that exists on Spotify or wherever, there's that tail, right? Where even just the other night we had the lead singer from Jimmy Eat World in at one of our barn shows, and it was an okay crowd, wasn't a great crowd. I was shocked, but then it's like, well, the last big Jimmy Eat World record was 15 years ago. That's not that long ago. Yeah. But people have terrible memories now,
And does it take something like...
So, like, doing something like this, oddly enough, helps them, to be in front of my audience. Mm-hmm. Maybe sells a few more Charlie Pride records. Maybe sells a few more tickets. You never know.
Is it safe for those... And here's the only thing I can relate to. Bono reaches out and does something with, like, B.B. King. Yeah. Or... acknowledges Johnny Cash or does something like that, and then all of a sudden it's okay to cross genres. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think that happens too, for
Yeah.
sure.
And there's an age group of people, and I lived through it, where you are absorbing different music, old, new, otherwise, at a rate that's crazy. You're consuming it like crazy. And then as you start to, it's like a Plinko game.
Yeah.
You're bouncing around all over the place at the top of the board, but then by the time you get to the bottom, you're pretty settled in your particular musical style. So you're not reaching out. You're not going to Ragged Records. By the way, Reed would be mad that you mentioned Ragged and not Co-op. But you're not going to those places and seeking out like old country music, like Willie Nelson. Boy, I have an appreciation for him. But it took me 35 years to get it. And now, you can reach all those people across generational lines, across formatic lines. And where do you do with the recordings that you make? At Daytrotter, somebody comes in, Carly Simon comes in, puts down a track. What do you do with it?
What do I do with it? Well, it just goes up on the website, so you can download and stream everything that we've ever taped.
They're aware of this, and they don't
They
mind.
are aware of it. No,
And-
that's why they're here.
And are they
Amazing.
recording new music? Is it re-recording old stuff just to get back in the studio to warm up for another
Look,
project?
a lot of it's promoting a new record, right? So
Okay.
you come in and you're like, hey, here's a couple new songs, but tons of people come in and try something they've never recorded before. Like, I mean, you're familiar with the Lumineers,
Okay.
that song, Hey Ho, which was their huge hit, their breakout hit. The very first time they ever recorded it was here in our studio. It was a brand new song. They were just trying it out. And our recording's the very first recording of that song.
So
people do that.
they
they'll
use
come
it
in
as
and they'll
like
be
a
hey,
demo?
Let's see. Just to see how it feels in the studio. They want to get it out to their fans. Like we're a distribution model, basically. It's like,
all right.
You come in and we could put it out into the world that day. You're not waiting to throw it out there. And obviously bands can do that on their own too. Record something, just put it up on SoundCloud or Bandcamp.
But they don't have the
hear it.
time, right?
They don't- yeah.
So it's easier to have...
Well, and we can get a better recording than just
Sure.
recording on your laptop.
Do we sound like the oldest guys in the world asking all these questions?
No.
Okay. Well, because it's like this. It's like there's this. It's like there's a wine cellar underneath my house that I never knew about.
Yeah.
And it's been there for years, and all these awesome bottles of wine have just been, sitting there marinating for all this, and like it just gets unearthed. Because Klinger made horrible fun of us when he was telling us about it, and I'm like, oh really? I don't really. What's this Daytrotter thing? And Jason Fechner was telling us about it, and I just thought he was talking about something dumb that he was doing. I mean,
he's going kayaking again.
Yeah.
And
Like
so
moving to Indianapolis, that was a dumb thing.
That is a dumb move. And
Jeez.
And I talked a little bit to Sean about this before we went on the air. When you get out of college and you get a job writing for a newspaper, you pretty much, don't you think, like, okay, I got it. I went to college, got my degree, got my job. Here I go. Now
Yeah.
it's time to just build my career and then coast through it.
Yeah, I mean, I started junior year in high school just answering phones. And so when I'd come back for summer and winter break during college, I basically just had a job, sort of. It's not like I ever got paid much, but I graduated from college and I thought, well, I didn't even send out any resumes. I was like, well, I'll just go back to the Times. I always wanted to live here.
It's great.
Sure.
I always wanted to live here. I never wanted to move anywhere else. And so I was just kind of like, I'm going to do my thing there. And then,
When does the seed develop for, you know what, there's this other idea that I've had in the back of my head. Like, I don't know how to take an idea from an idea to a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I went to a lot of shows. I knew I liked music a lot. I bought a lot of records. I think it was just, I grew up on a farm right along I-80, and I would always see tour buses. And then once you realize what was in those tour buses,
Yeah.
You're kind of like, well, they're just flying through. They are not stopping here. There are very few of those people stopping here. And I think I always had it in my head that, the original impetus was to kind of have my own record store, and then I'd have bands come in at noon, kind of have a lunch hour, where you could get kids to maybe come over for their lunch hour at high school, like Davenport Central kids come over,
Right.
Whatever. And
Get you ready for the talent show.
and have a band here for like half an hour. They sell a few records, and then they go on to their paid gig that night or whatever. And I think this just sort of sprung from that idea of like, how do I just talk people to not be here for the whole day and not even
Right.
do a show, but like, how do I get them just stop in and do something that they'll like to do
Right.
that everybody can kind of get some benefit out of?
It's almost like you appealed to you like understood their lifestyle and appealed to that part of it.
Well, most bands are bored, like,
right,
I mean,
right.
when I started this, nobody was doing something like this. There's always been radio shows
Yeah.
and things like that where you pop into a town and you're like, hey, we're playing tonight at, the whatever auditorium at 7:00. There's still tickets available, and you try to get more tickets, you know?
Right.
But as far as like marrying the internet to like an analog recording studio and have it be more studio than promo-ish sort of thing, it appealed to kind of their sensibilities because they're artists, and there weren't that many more there weren't as many obligations to their time when I started this 9 years ago. It was kind of like they were going to sit in Iowa City until the last possible minute before driving to their show in Chicago.
So
there was nothing else. There was nobody else asking them to do anything.
So this is a way for them to lessen the boredom, so maximize their time, and do something that would help their craft.
Absolutely, sure.
Okay, we got an interesting question from a listener, and I'm going to blame it on him because I wanted to ask the same thing, but I don't want to look stupid. Digital to analog. I don't get this. Recording on tape, analog, adds noise. It's not better when you listen. You don't hear that sound if it's digital. So what is it about analog? The tape hiss.
Yeah, sure.
Why is that? What?
Well, if you do it right, there's no tape hiss.
Oh, bam! Suck that, Chris. And
I mean, it's a known fact that analog. I mean, everybody appreciates analog more than digital. I mean, there's just a warmth to it. I mean, you can hear if you listen to records. If I sat my engineers down and put, let's just say, 5 records from 5 new bands in front of them, they could pick out which one's analog and which one's digital in a heartbeat.
I think the digital recordings, what you hear, there are, to make it the file the right size, there are pieces that somebody decided aren't audible, that the human ear can't hear. But that's not true. You might not be able to hear it, but it adds something to it. Like this part plays off of that part. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. You get the full thing on analog, where you get compressed and stripped out on digital.
Right. Everything's getting EQ'd and compressed, and you lose the periphery.
Right.
we're talking with Sean Moeller from Daytrotter Studios. If you can get a subscription. Everybody here in the Quad Cities, go to daytrotterpromo@gmail.com and put QC in the subject heading.
Now, if you're listening online, just fake it, and he'll never know the difference.
Right.
You could jack him and rip him up.
And then you can have access to all these incredible recordings. And I don't want you to give like the biggest name, but who has been, in your opinion, the best experience, start to finish?
We've become, pretty good friends with the Mumford & Sons guys, and we've done a lot of really fun stuff with them. They actually just invited us to come to Scotland at the end of the month, and I don't think I can do it, but...
They invited me and Bill, too, so it's not that big a deal.
I mean,
we got invited to Scott's Place.
Sweet.
You got invited to Scotland.
Right,
I don't know where
okay,
Scott's
yeah.
Place is. All right, how about this? Which artist, as I look over this list, you knew they were coming and you went, oh, man, I'm really a little bit nervous about this?
I kind of learned early on. I mean, we had a couple people early on that were like in bands that were my high school, like the bands that I loved, the ones that were like formative, like Weezer, right?
Okay.
So we had the bass player from Weezer, his band, The Rentals, came in, and that was kind of like one of the first ones where you can't really believe this is happening.
Okay.
And at the same time, he was a great dude, easy to talk with. We went to Huckleberries and stuff. It was like it was just like one of those things where it's like, this is kind of incredible. And I think really kind of from that point, you just realize that people are just people, and they don't really want to be treated like they're gods. Like they'd rather that you just kind of like screwed around with them and like maybe ribbed them a little bit, and like you just joke and you have a beer, and then I don't know.
So you can take Chris Christopherson to Huckleberries, and no one's going to recognize him because nobody's going to, hey, Isn't that Chris Christoph? Nobody's they'd slap you on the side of the head. Duh, we're in the Quad Cities. They're not here.
Yeah, like all the Bush dudes went to the coffee break around the corner, and a few days later, the owners of that tracked me down at a show we were putting on at Rostocks.
Yeah,
and just wanted to thank me. But they didn't know it was Bush until after they left, so they never got photos.
And then they contact you, and you go, "No, man, that's not them. Well, it's a costume contest I was doing."
And there's this.
You're wrong. You're dead wrong.
There's this matter of a credit card that didn't go through. It was Bush after all.
It was Bush.
Is there some way we can settle this up?
Well, I got to tell you, to hear you describe this, you certainly must have known what you were doing, because it's got such a hyper focus. You knew what you wanted to do. There must have been a need out there that you perceived, and to bring the two of them together, that's a gutsy call. I would have presented this to like my folks, taking my degree, throwing it out the window. I'm going to set up a barber shop for rock stars who come, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? I would have been in big trouble. So, did you know that this was going to work, or were you mostly optimistic and hopeful?
I think it was mostly optimistic.
Okay.
I mean, I knew we were doing something that nobody else was doing in the way we were doing it, and I guess I got a lot of really great positive feedback early on from artists that we had in, from labels and managers and publicists, or that found a lot of value in it, and we exploded our kind of traffic really early on, where we had a couple big people in, and then it just kind of went haywire.
So they tell their friends, and it kind of takes off from there.
We got picked up on. I mean, we had people, photographer from Wired magazine flying in, to do a piece about us, like within the first 6 months of existence, and it was just kind of wild. Esquire was writing about us, and Rolling Stones. It was a weird first year. Yeah.
Evan wants to know, can you ask Sean about his connection to Codfish Hollow?
Yeah.
Does he own it? I was at the Delta Spirit and Friends concert. This was a few weeks ago, and camped out. It was awesome. Yeah,
it's a great place. It's up in Maquoketa. It's just these farm owners that I know, that I've become really good friends with. I drove up there, talked them into kicking the farmers out of the barn and start putting on shows.
That's
with
the barn
me.
show you're talking about.
That's the barn shows, yeah. We do 2 a month. They own the grounds, and I help them put on some good shows out there. It's the most beautiful place you'll ever see a show in the world.
When was the last time you were really excited about it? I mean, and you showed it. Like, we would get excited. Like, I feel like I'm way too high strung to ever be around you for a very long time. But dude, you can't just be this confident all the time. Or has this project just because you said people are just people, and I thought that was really cool. But, I mean, there's nobody that asks to be treated different. There's nobody you get high strung about. There's nothing.
Carly Simon didn't
usually
intimidate you at all? There she is. She's a legend.
Not really, man. I don't know.
Wow.
See, that's it. And
we don't get it.
She probably picks up on that. Hi, I'm Carly Simon. I don't get you, man. Hi, welcome.
Right, I don't care.
Man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. Our engineer, Mike, he's a great dude. He's the most accommodating, friendly guy ever, and he doesn't know many of the bands that we bring, just doesn't know who certain people are, and so it's great. That's perfect. It's this beautiful blank slate where he's not going to treat anybody different because he has no idea who they were, even if they were famous, and it's perfect. It's
probably helpful for some, like I'm thinking Chris Christopherson, who really is an artist despite himself, because he just wants to. These guys, they come in.
Just wanted to fly helicopters and be smart. He's good at everything.
And how cool is it for these? I'm thinking about the analog. I'm back to the analog again. When Michaels and I do a production piece in here, it's all digital, and Michaels and I can screw it up, and Michaels will just click it right out. And it's convenient, it's quick, but I wonder if these artists like the challenge to the art.
Yeah.
To prove again to themselves and anybody else that, they got to get it right. And
you have to get it right.
You guys don't edit a damn thing, right? No. So they actually have to
if you mess up, you have to do the song all over again.
Yeah.
We're not punching anything in. We have to do it again. That bass note was terrible.
Well, have you ever heard the Beach Boys, that outtake of the Help Me Rhonda thing where they're working? It's just the vocals, and the dad is trying to talk them through it and all that. You're taking it back to that time when you did the entire thing start to finish, and if you wanted to do it, you wanted it done, you had to do the whole thing over
Yeah.
again.
I mean,
same
some of the
sort
most
thing.
charming moments in rock and roll history are the little things that are still left on the tape.
The little mistakes.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, Neil Young records are filled with them. You know, I mean, if you listen to him, you hear all kinds of stuff.
And more the older he gets.
There's
Some
a-
of them he doesn't even know are mistakes.
There's a lot of mistakes
Yeah.
on his new records.
Yeah.
The Love Hurts by Nazareth. I'm sure you've heard during the guitar solo, you can hear one of the guys clearing his throat.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that thing? It's, I'll have to dig it up and play it for you. See if you. I'm sure you could spot it.
Yeah.
We got Sean Moeller is here from Daytrotter, Daytrotter.com. If you go there today, you get a free subscription. This is for Quad City residents only. Or interlopers.
Actually, we extended it to the whole state of Iowa this week.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Illinois
we
people.
brought our beer out through Exile Brewing Company in Des Moines, and we're like, you know what? Let's do the whole state of Iowa.
All right.
I like that you brought beer. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
Here's what you
Friday.
need to do. Daytrotterpromo@gmail.com. In the subject, write QC, and you get a free subscription. Somebody said, hey, ask Sean about this. He was the JA Entrepreneur of the Year. The ceremony was the first time his mom saw him in a suit.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Who's that?
I can't tell you,
I
man.
feel like that's somebody from JA.
I don't,
Yeah, that was fun.
When was that?
3 weeks ago,
Okay.
something like that.
All
Yeah.
right. Wow, that's
Yeah, I had to buy a suit. They actually thought I was going to show up in flannel. They're like, and that would have been totally cool.
whatever.
we're JA, man. We're just like you. You know. Wow. Well, I'm sure we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of the cool stuff you're able to do and the stuff you have planned to do. But now it sounds like from a guy who is like working a job writing, which is also a creative outlet,
Yeah.
you've now managed to build a studio, attract not just name bands, but artists of all levels and styles to come in and produce some quality stuff that you are then able to just put out on the site. Then on top of that, you're putting shows together.
Mm-hmm.
You also do the thing at Rostox.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a big deal or not that you don't want to talk about.
No, it's great. You know, every Monday night we do I fly people in or bring people in that are some of the
unannounced,
best
right?
in the world.
And it's
a lot of
unannounced.
times.
It's I love it. I think it's very cool. Rostox is a teeny tiny little bar in Rock Island. It's right near where Joey does all of his theater stuff at the Center for Living Arts. It's right around the corner from there. And you walk in, you don't even know what the place is like. You don't know if it's going to be a record store or an office building. And you walk in, it's just the coolest little bar with a live stage in back. Maybe max capacity of about 350, and that's if you use a shoehorn.
100.
Okay,
100?
100.
100.
As you could tell, my knowledge of crowds and live shows is really suffering.
You're not going to get a job with Sean.
It's
with
but,
the way you estimate and you number things, man.
Again, though, it's just what a cool thing to just decide to do and do, man. That's guts.
Wow. Yeah, thanks.
Daytrotter.com if you want to keep up on that free subscription. If you email them, daytrotterpromo@gmail.com, and in the subject, just write QC, and they'll take care of it.
And what's the story behind the name? Why Daytrotter?
You know, originally it was just kind of the thought of, we were going to just post one session a day, a new thing a day, so it was just kind of trading one for the other. And I don't know. I had a weird thing about horses, so we just
All right.
married a horse to
I
it.
don't know.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
It's kind of like you went with it, and now it's too late to change it. Kind of like, you know what, when we were two dorks, when we were 20, man, that's so edgy and cool. And now coming up late 40s, God, this is dumb.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
But we were going to change it, and the only thing we wanted to change it to was actually Daytrotter.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
not
already
available,
taken.
man.
It was already taken.
All right, buddy. Well, continued success to you. It's pretty impressive that how quickly it's grown and the talent that you've attracted, and that they've reciprocated. I guess a mutual respect. Is that fair?
I think so. I mean, people come back.
That says a lot. Absolutely.
Good.
All right, bud. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks a lot.
Stay in touch. Sean Moeller from Daytrotter, Daytrotter.com. We'll put all of that information that we discussed up at our website at twodorks.com. Website at twodorks.com. Website at twodorks.com. Website.